Hey guys, welcome back to the One Big Thing. Going to bring a lot of energy today. Anytime I have a friend of a friend on the show, I want to make sure I honor them really well. And today I'm graced to have Justin Masterson on with me. You guys heard from Kristen Campbell a couple episodes ago. She was somebody I grew up years ago with at Christian Leadership Camp. And when I get done, I ask people like, hey, who do you know in your world that you think would be a good interview? And she was like, do you know Justin Masterson? And knew of him from obviously his days in Major League Baseball, but never had a chance to actually grace the screen with him. But here we are, just two dudes figuring out life and trying to encourage each person that listens. So, Justin, welcome to the One Big Thing. But for those who may not know you, what's maybe a few things here right at the beginning of the show you want them to know about?
That's a really good question. I'm not totally sure what I want them to know about me. I mean, you said it. I did play baseball, but currently I coach high school baseball. I think I've been doing that for 7 years, and I love the coaching staff. I love our kids, but I love the coaching staff. A lot of fun. I, I really enjoy hanging out with my family, and then just random things. Work, help out some nonprofits. You know, do a little janky podcast on the side, and who knows what else. But
Well,
that's about it.
tell them the Janky podcast. What's the podcast that you're
Oh,
into?
the Justin Masterson Show. Just
Oh, that's good branding. Easy to find you. Okay,
yeah, easy
love
peasy.
that.
You put it in, and I'm there,
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah. Well, this has been a lot of fun for me because again, I have, individuals from all walks of life, but anytime you have a professional athlete, even if you've never played sports at a professional level, I think you can always glean from the fact that we're all human beings and you were graced, with a platform to be able to throw a baseball at high speeds and make money doing it and entertain fan bases. And now, you're a dad giving back through coaching and what you're doing. And so this show is called The One Big Thing because I tried to give you as a listener one thing that you might be able to take from Justin's story that might empower you or encourage you to know that you're not alone. And so, Justin Masterson, if I had to ask you, what is your one big thing? What would you like to share with somebody out there listening today?
Well, it is a very broad word,
Mhm.
but ultimately, the one big thing that's been speaking to me is maturity.
Mm. Within that is that more
I
of
told you it's
just,
going to be big.
yeah, no. In a season of life, like how did you, what's speaking to you right now about that word in this season?
Well, it's just the more and more. So whether it's I'm playing professional baseball now that I'm with my kids and we have maybe some travel baseball, rec baseball. I'm in the high school world, dealing with high schoolers. I'm in the church world, nonprofit world a bit, and what I just continually see is a lack of ability for people to handle their emotions.
Hmm.
And so my understanding of maturity, kind of my definition when I'm growing in my maturity, is my ability to handle those big emotions that come my way. And so that I can eventually endure whatever hardship comes my way. And so that's kind of what breaks it down a little bit, in my mind, just in a way where, dealing with a lot of men, I encounter many men and some of the things we're doing and the anger problems and other things that they have. And just in marriage in general, if you've been married or are married or have been married or in a relationship, or you're leading people or guiding people, dealing with people is very hard.
Mhm.
And so the ones who seem to do it the best are the ones who can still handle their emotions in the midst of it. And you'll see them just power through whatever comes their way. And so seeing that, thinking through that in professional setting, that's why it's been speaking to me so much.
Yeah, and you have different layers, right? As a man, you're first of all trying to figure out why am I wired the way that I am? What do I think the thoughts that I have? Why do I let people down? How do I get better? How do I live a life of discipline? Then you have a spouse and now you're trying to kind of carry part of that weight. You bring kids into the world. That's another thing. But then you've also been on sports teams. Now you're coaching and giving back and also serving with nonprofits. So you're serving with leaders. And so, is there anything either in your own, personal convictions about maturity, or is this something more that you saw people handling their emotions? Has it kind of come out in different ways that's made you pause and reflect on your own life? So just talk to me about, kind of this idea of people struggling with their emotions and how you see that kind of being manifested.
Yeah, it's been a journey of life. So from a young age, I would say, does it speak to me? Yes, it speaks to me because I've been watching people my entire life. One of the things that I've loved doing and happy about at times is that I didn't have to go through certain things because I watched people go through certain things, and I took notes. Was like, Yeah, I'm probably not going to do that because I watched how that affected them. Probably not going to do that. And and so from a young age, like even my dad's a pastor, still is. He was a pastor when I was growing up, but I'm hanging out in like these church settings, and I'm seeing these people, man, who just getting fired up about things that don't matter. Like even at a young 14, 15-year age, I'm like, we're changing the color of the carpet, and you got people just losing their mind. You got other things that are happening within their life that's just going crazy. I mean, they're in there and they're doing good things, and a lot of these, I love these people, still do to this day. But just watching how they went about their business, I'm like, what is going on here? Like, there's got to be more. There's got to be something different. And and so then I didn't necessarily have the biggest words for it until I continue on, and then what? I'm in pro baseball, and we got young guys, we got older guys, we got you know people who are trying to keep it together. We got dudes who are afraid to call their dad because their dad has more or less emotionally abused them, of like, you better be good, this is how you gain your worth and your wealth within this life. And I'm like, golly, like this is tough. Like I could imagine that. And so I finally found a book that really helped me see the words that it was. It's called Rare Leadership, and it's by this guy named Dr. Jim Wilder and Marcus Warner. And when I got there, it like put words to the things that I was thinking about. And so, in it, rare is a what was it called? Where each word stands for something. Um, is it
I know
an
what you're saying.
acronym?
I can't think of the word right now, but I know what you're thinking of. Yeah.
Whatever it is. And so you got rare is the type of leadership they talk about is rare, but also it stands for, the R is when things come, can you remain relational, act like yourself, return to joy so that you can endure hardship well. And there's just not many people. I read that. I was like, ooh, like, that's it. That's it. And so that became the idea of greater maturity is, man, how can I remain relational whenever a hardship comes my way, still be able to act like myself? I don't remember if you remember them old Snicker commercials
Mhm.
where they're like, you're not acting like yourself. And they usually have some sort of diva,
Right.
celebrity on there. And then like, here's a Snickers. And then they eat it and they're like, now I'm back. And that's the way people are with everything. Like when the emotions come, they're like, oh, they were just hungry, or oh, they're just tired. It's like, no, we got to learn how to handle these emotions a little bit better so that we can act like ourselves even when the big things come. And so it put words to it, and I was seeing it, and then I'm like, okay, how can I then reflect in my own life and see where this is at? And so then I'm checking the way that I'm dealing with my wife, I'm checking the way I'm dealing with my kids, and saying, whoa, okay, maybe there's something to this.
Mhm.
Like an issue comes up, why am I getting so frustrated? Why am I feeling such deep emotions, and allowing them to just take me somewhere I don't need to be? Doesn't mean I don't feel them. It just means that I can take a deep breath, be able to understand what's going on, and then be able to have conversations. I mean, that's the gist of kind of how it flowed together, of seeing things throughout my life, because I love observing people and
Mhm.
seeing what's going on, and then finally seeing and hearing some words of somebody way smarter than me, because I'm not that smart, wrote about it, and I was like, ooh, yes, that's it. I'm going to take that. I'm going to run with it, because that, I mean, as you said, that's the one big thing that's been kicking in my world.
Yeah, and if I recall, you were on the Red Sox. Were you there with some of the larger personalities, David Ortiz, Manny Ramirez? I mean, were those teammates of yours? And so,
Oh,
I think some of us look across at our colleagues and it's like, ooh, they got to handle their emotions. But when it's a larger than life baseball player, right? And then you also realize that I think what's fascinating with me is the scars and the weight of things that follow you even from childhood that most people don't know how to process. And
yeah.
so, it's fascinating that a man on the top of the world playing Major League Baseball for the Red Sox is struggling to call their dad because of a past hurt. You just kind of assume when you watch people from the far as a fan or stardom that they kind of got it all figured out because money must make up for the insecurities or the things that
Right.
we deal with. And so I think what's hard is that when you are trying to carry yourself to a level and standard that I think for me in my life has just been the Lord kind of challenging me, like, Steve, I've called you to a higher standard, and it's not myself being better than anybody. It's just like, I shouldn't have said that. Like,
Mm.
And you feel this little conviction, right? And so you hold yourself to a standard. I think what's hard then is being a human in a world where, not that you assume other people have that same standard, but when they don't, like, it really throws me off that I'm like, how come you're not taking ownership of what you did? And like, why do I have to be a bigger person? You know what I mean? Like, in has that been ever a struggle for you where, and I'm not saying I get it right and I'm not a perfect person, but there is an awareness that exists in my heart and mind of, like, when I blow it, I'm the first one to say sorry. You know what I mean? I'm the first one to be like, that was on me, you know?
Right.
And then when you deal with another human, your spouse or, college kids or, whatever level, you're waiting for somebody to, like, apologize and it doesn't come, right? And it throws you off. So, like, how has that worked for you in your life as you talk about maturity? Like, what does that look like as you deal with it maybe in marriage or even as a coach, like trying to shape people? Like, has that manifested in a way for you? Are there things that you're, like, working through, or, like, talk to me about what that looks like as you deal with other people?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's exactly what it is. I mean, if you're describing what you just described, that would say that in your walk, your maturity level has grown enough to be able to understand what's taking place.
Yeah.
So a simple example is not necessarily in how I'm coaching or whatever. It's even someone that I didn't know. I'm going to take some trash to a trash dump, and so pull in, and they weigh the trailer. The lady's just not very friendly. You got to walk in, you got to talk to her, try and get a receipt, and then when you leave, you got to come back in and talk to her, and she's just on one. And I'm just trying to be nice and kind, and she's just kind of yelling a little bit, raising her voice. Easily a situation where I could come in and be like, well, excuse me, like, you're in customer service. Like, I think I need you to turn that down a little bit, maybe get a little cranky back, get the jab there, defend myself, not allow things to, for her to say anything that would kind of take me apart. Like, no, I'm going to get you.
Right.
But instead, like, in this journey, it's like, well, what's the purpose of this? Like,
Mhm.
my goal right now is what? Okay, I'm trying to take some trash in, but I value people. So if I'm taking the first one, like, this is the relationship that I just made. So how do I keep whatever relationship this is bigger than my problem? My problem is she's acting like a jerk, but she's a person. She's a human being created by God. So I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to dump my trash out and come back in. I'm going to try to be super respectful, not get walked all over, but be respectful in the midst of it. And so then we leave, but then we come back because I'm like, man, there's just something, and they always say the phrase, like, everyone's going through something. And it's true. I try and think of that more and more when I get in these situations. Like, I bet something's going on. So we go back and we get a tin of my wife's cookies, which are the greatest cookies in all the land. She used to have a little cookie business. And we bring these back, put a little cookie cart on there, and we're like, you know what? It seems like you're having a tough day. Why don't, here's some cookies. Maybe it'll cheer you up. We don't wait for anything more. We leave. And then we get an email not too long later. And it was just like, you could feel the emotions
Sure.
and, like, almost the tears that were coming from her as she was typing the email
Mhm.
of, I think it was for her. She had just found out that her, like, sister had cancer,
Yeah.
and it was just hitting her really hard. And what was she doing? She wasn't thinking about what was going on. Like, she's in her own little world.
Yep.
And so the point that I'm getting at is that as I grow in my maturity, my ability to handle them, when I come around people who aren't doing as well, I have that ability to be the mature one and say, how can I come down and comfort them, rather
Mhm.
than expect them to run up to my levels? Say, no, they're somewhere else. Let me come down. Let me take a deep breath. Maybe we need to take a break right here. Like,
Yep.
I understand this so that we can continue on forward. And I got stories like that, with my wife, and learning those things, whether she's getting fired up or I'm getting fired up. And I'm like, whoa, what is going on here? Like,
Mhm.
let's take a deep breath. And even how in the coaching world, like, one of my things that I'm trying to push in the coaching world is the fact you don't have to yell and scream and tear people down in order to get them to do the things that you need them to do.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean there's not a moment where you got to raise your voice in order for people to understand, like, hey, it's getting serious right now. But we just had an instance where Uh, Coach gets out. We were kind of sleeping, not doing great, raises his voice, and it was motivating for that moment. And
Mhm.
it got guys going. We scored 5 runs right after that. And we kind of debriefed the next day when I was doing my little eye of the tiger mental stuff with them, and was like, hey, it's not wrong that we raise our voice, but what coach is learning and we're trying to learn is not to tear people down, but
Yep.
how can we remind them that they're not acting like their normal self?
Sure.
We need to get back to being our normal self, because ultimately, like that yelling and screaming, it can work for a little bit. And that toxic voice that we have in our head will like
Mhm.
motivate us to get back. And as you're talking about, like, yeah, if I'm the first one to do wrong, I'm going to apologize, because ultimately we want to get to joy.
Yep.
Like joy, I thought this was like a Jesus thing, but it turned out it's actually real brain science, that like our brains were made to run off of joy. And
Mhm.
the definition of that joy is the idea that someone is happy to be with you.
I love
And
that.
so you see little babies, right? When you just smile at them and they just smile right back, and they love it, and you don't smile and they're like, and then you smile right back, and they love it because they know, like, they see the smiles and like someone's happy to be with them. And that's that joy, and it's always relational in our minds. And so that's what we're trying to get within this maturity is how can we just run off of joy and be that. And I know I went on a
No,
tirade right there.
I
I'll
was,
get off
I
my
was
soapbox for a second there, Steve. You can come in now.
well, I think you develop if you choose to, right? It's a choice. If you want to be humbled enough to say like I want to understand emotional intelligence, normally you're met with something that hits you between the eyes and you have a choice. And the one thing that I've been looking at in my life is just am I trying to get better or am I just getting bitter? And when you allow bitterness to grow inside of you, you can feel like a victim and everybody's out to get you. Or if you can choose to get better, it's like there's going to be some steps you have to take. And I think what you're talking about is also having a level of empathy that I think the world desperately needs to taste, because it's very easy to chalk up the first impression of a person, a stranger, a neighbor, and be like, what's their deal? Like they just annoy me. And what I find is that in that moment, like as I'm dealing in my flesh, spiritually something kicks in that's like, you don't know what they're going through. And then it's like I stop myself to be like, well, wait a minute. I'm getting frustrated at the fruit and the action that I'm seeing. But if I'll pause for a second, this might be an opportunity. And I think, and Justin, you've experienced life in a different way than I have. You've been on some huge stages, all-star games for Major League Baseball. You're now coaching kids. When you're dealing, with emotional intelligence, I feel like as I get older, there are people that are aware that there's a larger story that's always happening in the background of life. And then there's those that are kind of just like existing.
Mm.
They go from one challenge to another, things just happen. I tend to gravitate towards people, and I can pretty quickly pick it up that they're like aware that there's a larger story, which then allows them to kind of work on themselves and realize like this is not about me. And I think to me that's what's become emotional maturity in my life, is when an email comes that I didn't expect, or a conversation that I didn't expect, or I'm confronted with something. How quickly can I remind myself in the heated moment or the rising of emotions and say, this is not about me,
Mm.
and step back. So, like, even for you, you can say maturity. And my goal with this show is not just to say, like, the one big thing is maturity. And people are driving around going, like, how do I do that? Has there been anything from a super practical standpoint that's helped you kind of in your own daily rhythms of life or things that you do to kind of ground yourself? Is there anything that you have implemented, books or anything that
Yeah,
can be a part of it?
I want to give one thought process, because you keep hitting on it, but you don't actually say it in the words that, like, I hear it. So there was this way of learning, and it was said information plus make the right choice, like encourage someone to make the right choice. That leads to transformation. So that's kind of the way it is. If I give you the right information and then you just make the right choices based off of that, then you'll be transformed. And then if you don't make the right choices, I'm going to hold you accountable. So I'll bring accountability in to like force you to make these right choices. And that is supposed to lead to transformation. Unfortunately, that's not really the best way to go about it. They found, people smarter than me, that if we understand our identity, and that's what you keep talking about, Stephen, when you're like, I know who I am in Christ. I have an understanding of what I'm about. I have an understanding of my group, like my people. What is the identity of my people that I hang out with?
Yeah.
And then you have that sense of belonging so that you know you're cared for, you know you're loved, you're a part of something. Like that's what truly leads to transformation.
Mhm.
So one of the things that you need to, kind of seek out is understand who we are. And that's a tough one to kind of work through.
Mhm.
But working through what has been put on my heart, what is around there, who am I spending time with, what is my group, what is it like to act like us, is one of the phrases I always like to use. And then when you have that belonging, well then things are able to adjust and move. And so you're able to then build this capacity,
Mhm.
is the whole goal of what we're trying to do. And so it's like, what does it take to get to your boiling point? In the sports world, it's like, how much can you handle? And when things start getting crazy and you give up that base hit, you walk the next guy, like all of a sudden it's like, up, he lost it, he's done. And you see that as young kids. Or is it like, no, 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 this dude can handle it. We got bases loaded. There's one out. He makes a pitch, gets the ball back to him, throws it home, throws the first base, double play, we're out of the inning, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Dude never, didn't sweat whatsoever. Like those are the things that like you do in a performance setting. How can you have that same thing at home? And honestly, one of the phrases that I use is another one of these, acronymy thingies, is eating
We
some
found the
cake.
word acronym. It
Is that
took
what it
us
is?
took
Okay,
us
there we
20
go.
minutes. We figured out the word.
That's all right. That's what happens with me. Eating some cake, man.
Mhm.
And so when I say that, like I said to the high schoolers, hey, we need to eat a little cake. And that's like to remind us or get an assessment of where like my relational circuits are at.
Yeah.
And so the first word is curiosity.
Mhm.
Like, so how can I be curious? Like you've heard it said before, like I'm not coming up with anything new. Like this is all stuff people have heard. So it's all going to be a reminder.
Yep.
But like asking curious questions, like if you're in a spot where you can ask curious questions, what happens? You're not thinking about yourself. You're
Mhm.
actually thinking about somebody else.
Yeah.
And so then you go into appreciate, like what do you appreciate about the person, you know, either in front of you or the thing that's kind of getting your mind. Well, what does that mean you have to do? I have to stop thinking about myself and think about them. And then you go, okay, well, we got a C, we got an A. Oh, it's K, kindness. Kindness is trying to build joy for somebody else. So now again, we're not thinking about ourselves, we're thinking about somebody else. And then finally, the easiest yet sometimes the hardest of them all is the E, is that eye contact. I mean, it's as simple as that. You notice that when you're feeling some type of way and you're about to have a hard conversation, it is difficult to look the person in the eye and you're looking wherever. So when you can have that eye contact, you can be curious, you can start showing appreciation for the people around you and try and build that kindness. Like those are the four things that I think about that have been, really helpful in the bit of it. So when I come in and I'm starting to get fired up, I'm like, whoa, how can I ask some curious questions here? Let me slow it down. How can I think, you know what? I appreciate that about you, rather than just coming in hot with whatever it is. And they're like, how can I do something kind? How can I build some joy in their life all the while I'm just taking a peek at them? And it's
Yep.
not easy, like
No.
by any means, because you feel like you're losing something. But you used the words earlier, like humility. Like if you're able to humble yourself enough, take a deep breath. One of the big parts is quieting.
Mhm.
To be able to quiet, like we're trying to build this. So we're eating some cake, right? But a practice that we can do every single day. Like if we were meant to run off of joy, and this was always weird to me when I first heard it. I'm like, I don't know if it's that simple. You remember them old ladies always seem to have like that gratitude journal or notebook or something and be writing in it. And you're like, oh, that's some old lady thing. Like there's nothing to that really. Well, science would say something different.
Yeah. Yeah.
They would say take 5 to 10 minutes every single day and write down something you appreciate.
Yeah.
Whether that's something from the past that you appreciate, something that currently you're appreciative of, or something you look forward to that you appreciate that you're about to be doing. And then that is easily the baseline for building joy capacity in your life, which helps out when you start trying to eat some cake.
Yeah. I've noticed a couple of patterns in my life, like when we're out with the family and a meal was wrong or something was missed. my wife will be like, "Oh, they didn't do it the right way." And I'm like, "Well, let's see what we can do." And she's like, "No, no, no, no. Like, don't say anything. Don't say anything." And you'll just see me get up and disappear. And I'll come back and I'll have a brand new whatever. And she's like, "How'd you do that?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, I just showed kindness to the person and I explained what happened. And what I have found, like, in my life, like, I've always been a naturally curious person. I love to know how things work conceptually. I love to know what people do for a living. And if I go to an event, a party, a networking thing, I'll find a person and sit with them and spend time. And it's not because there's a gain in my life or something that I want. That's just how I'm wired, where it's like, Justin, what do you do for a living? And then I'll just keep asking questions. And it's not because and then, I make connections and I make long-term friends. And then people are like, "How do you know all these people?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I guess I just appreciate people." But I'm thinking about you in your world, when you're a baseball pitcher and either you're getting ready, you get a call in the bullpen of start warming up. So, it's time to activate your muscles and start getting in mentally in the game. And when you're blowing it, you get and you're getting yanked. And so you have time to like decompress. When you're a mom, a dad, and you're living every day in the world, there is no reliever coming. There
Mm-mm.
is no warming up. You just get thrown into situations and you can't, like, in the middle of your workday when it doesn't go well, be like, we're not Zach Morris that can just be like, time out and reset. It's like
What a
you're
reference.
trying to respond to a hard work situation while you're getting a text on your phone that you're like, what the heck? And then you get a school alert from your kids that they're not feeling well or something went wrong. And it's like the inundation of all these things. There is no ability to just like bring a reliever in. And so I'm just thinking about the person of, how do you now post baseball and the things that you're doing? Like, how do we encourage a listener out there who's like, man, I want to grow an emotional maturity. I want to own my emotions. I want to get better. But I just find when push comes to shove, I'm not always making good decisions. Is there anything, you use the CAKE acronym, is there anything else that you do? You talked about the book, Rare Leadership, I think at the beginning, but is there anything else that, when you guys talk on your podcast or in men's groups or whatever, like what has also helped you in your life kind of grow in this aspect?
I tell you, man, in my world, it's always the most simple things. But the other one is what we call is just quieting. So you make reference of Zach Morris calling the timeout. And even though it doesn't seem like we have that amount of time, but man, when I was coaching basketball and you take a timeout, a full timeout's only a minute, you know, and then you got the 30-second timeout. And I think we lose sight of the fact that like those things come and they come quick. And it seems like in the language we'd use in sports, the game speeds up. Like I'm stuck in here. There's no one warming up. Like this is where I think of it. There's no one warming up in the bullpen. I'm in a little bit of trouble. No one's coming to help me. So either you allow the game to speed up, or you take a little time out where no one else knows it, and you do a little quieting, like breathing. So we talk about like the best practices. Another acronym for you. I'm just throwing the acronyms because I didn't come up with them, but I like them.
Good.
The first is in the best practice is breathe. Like when we're trying to quiet ourselves for a second, it doesn't mean we're just like meditating. No, but we take a moment and breathe. I mean, there's countless ways. We do a 6-2-8 with the baseball guys, in for 6, hold for 2, out for 8. Then you work through that. You got the military style, which is more the box breathing. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, in for 4. And you just find yourself like feel the rhythm of that body, feel yourself. In other psychology world, they call that grounding techniques because
Yeah.
it grounds you. It reminds you that like, oh, I'm a human. I'm here. I can touch myself. It's there. But in the best, you got your breathing, and then you got the E, which is crazy to exaggerate for a second. Not like let it take you out of yourself, but there is something to be like, oh, okay, now I'm good. I just had to get that one little shout out. My guy Jason Kipnis, he was a second baseman in Cleveland, used to just break bats, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe there was. I'm not saying let's go break some bats, but there's something to that simple, like, here we go. All right, as long as we allow it to bring us back to where we need to be. And then, of course, we got, the ability to soothe, which is just as simple as, that grounding, remind us we're here. Just kind of get a little rub, man. Like for that moment where I'm feeling like a little bit overwhelmed. Okay, let me rub my hands together. Whew, here we go. And then finally there's that bit of like, you're already tense.
Mhm.
So how can, like, if you've ever been stretched before, there's I don't know the exact technique it's called, but say you're like getting your leg stretched and it goes to a certain point and they're like, all right, now push your heel into my hand. So you're giving a little bit of tension and then you let loose. And what does it do? It gives you a little bit more room to go. And then you push a little bit more and you let go and a little bit more. So that little tension, tense up and relax. And it actually calms the body more than we think it does. Like those are the most practical things because that's what gets you. I mean, you said it exactly, Stephen. What gets you is you're in the moment, you're in the grind, you don't think you have any time, no one's coming to save you, but you can still take a moment. Think about it. Even in the midst of chaos, there can be 10, 15 seconds of a deep breath. And then if we know who we are, we can go, ha, this is what I was made for. Let's go do this. And it's not easy. Like it is intentional practice every single day of every single moment. It is intentional messing up
Mhm.
every single day of every single moment. But as I tell my kids, as I tell everyone I'm around, our goal is not perfection. Our goal is to work into excellence. Because perfection, we're like, oh, I didn't do it, I'm done. Excellence goes, ooh, I got a little bit better. I'm a little bit closer. Ooh,
Yep.
almost. Ooh, that's not it. Okay, but that's all right. Ooh, it's going to help me to understand that.
Yeah, I kind of had that saying years ago, not excellence, but it's not perfection, it's about progress. Did I make some
Mm.
progress? And I guess in the time that we have today, and I don't even know if this applies, so if it doesn't, we'll just cut it out of this episode. Um, I think, when you're trying to mature in yourself, that's a very self inflicted type relationship. I think it's sometimes almost harder. And I don't know if you've ever experienced anything with your wife or your kids. When you see someone you really love struggling and you
Mm.
can't just take what you've kind of are figuring out and put it on them, but you have to like love them where they're at and not. I think of sometimes where my wife and I have ever had, we don't fight, but when we have those ticky tack type, like you're not hearing me, you're not seeing me, and it's like, I don't, what do you mean? Like I see you. Like, when you are trying to indulge yourself in self improvement and making progress, and then you have something with a spouse or child where you don't want to fix them or overstep, but you also don't want to allow them to stay where they are. There is a personal journey. Has there been anything like in your world that you've ever had to like
Oh,
work through or struggle with where it's not necessarily what you're going through, but through the eyes of somebody that you care about?
man, that's the world. I mean, that's once you grow in your maturity,
Hmm.
it frees you up to see,
Yep.
to the words you're saying to see. And so a part of what adjusted in my life is there was a bit of time where I kept looking at my wife and being like, come on, like I'm up here, let's go. Like what's taking you so long? Get up here and go. Like it is not that hard. And the more that I grew in my maturity, gave me the ability to take that deep breath and go, oh, okay, all right, she's not ready yet. How? Let me just love her where she's at.
Hmm.
Like I'm here. When the moment's right,
Yep.
we'll have a conversation, and not like, oh, we're gonna really work this out and get through it. It's like, no, the moment's right. Now I can ask this question.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't have been right for me to ask the question, the curious question that seems harmless, but could have been perceived as a little passive aggressive, even though I wasn't trying to be passive aggressive. But I hear it now in my head going like, man, if I say that, that sounds really passive aggressive,
Hmm.
even though that's not my intention. So I'm just going to hold on to that one
Hmm.
until it's in like a nice mood. We're in a good spot. And then the question comes and it's a helpful question.
Hmm.
It actually allows us to have a conversation. And that's the hard part. Like you have to start being aware of people and how they're trying to think. And you're not going to be perfect with it, but pick those moments. And you can't fix everybody. Your goal is not to change everybody.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of that old thinking of like, well, Stephen, you're smart. Like if you just give your wife the right information, then why doesn't she make the right choices? And so if we think the different way, it's like, no, I have to understand who she is and remind her who she is. Like, no, that's not you. Like, you're awesome. You're great. You're loved. You're cared for. And like, I'm here for you no matter what. Like, because usually when the craziness happens, they know, like, you know, you're being crazy when you're crazy. They know they're being crazy when they're crazy, and a little fightful. So you just remind them who they are, and then it's like, okay, when the time's right, now we have that real conversation, and now there's that belonging and sense, and that's what highlights where the transformation comes in.
Mhm.
Like, I don't want to tell my kid how bad. Like, that's what it is. Like, oh, why are you doing that, babe? You shouldn't be doing that. No, let me remind her, like, man, don't talk to yourself like that because you're great. Like, you got the best cookies ever. I know you don't believe it every single time someone has it. You're like, I can't believe they said my cookies are so good. Babe, they're the best. No one will ever deny that. And for me, I have to do a better job. Like, what I find is appreciating those
Mhm.
things and allowing her, not just because she's a words of affirmation person, but in general, like, okay, speak into that. Like, that's okay. Your certain moments is like, well, yes, I am right, but why do I need to prove that I'm right now? What does that do for me? You know,
Yeah.
like, the reason I left baseball was was not because my skills weren't there anymore. I was actually at a point where I was finally healthy, ready to go. I'd had a surgery on my right shoulder. It's 2017. I'm feeling good. Uh, but I saw my family 4 weeks out of 9 months. And I'm like, what does it gain me other than some money to get back to the big leagues and prove that I can do it again, to show the world that Masty's back in the world doing his thing, and yet potentially lose my family? No, I'll chew on that. I'll sit on that. I don't need that. You know, I'd rather go at my family. But everyone else was like, hey man, don't do it for your family, because there's going to become a point in time where they don't appreciate it. And then you're going to be like, don't you know what I did for you? I said, no, 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 man. I'm trying to grow in that maturity so that I don't have to shove it in anybody's face, because it ain't about me. And so that's been the journey ever since, man. When you start learning something, instead of trying to force it, you got to let it sit in you. Too often people try and take something, boom, throw it to somebody else. Take it, pass it. It's like, no, get the pass, take a look at the rim, and see what you can do,
Yeah.
and let it sit in you for a little bit. And then as it's speaking to you and adjusting you and molding you, now then we can allow that to then speak to some other people.
Yeah, and I think that's a very interesting perspective coming from you, because the majority of us have never played at that level of sport where you're paid to do it, and to think that you walked away when you didn't have to because you recognize that family was important to you. My prayer has always been, Lord, don't let me get so tied to the dream or what I'm building that if you ever tell me it's time to walk away, that I can't, right?
Mhm.
And so, like, use me in my life, but help me also remember what this is all about. And if you ever feel it's time to change course or correction, you have full access to tell me what to do. And I think part of that, I don't always get into my journey as we wrap up here, but I had opportunities in business where, when you're 20 years old and you're projected to make X amount of money in your lifetime, if you stay in this role, whether it's sales or whatever, and you come from a middle income family, like, it's very easy to be lured in. And then in the industry that I was in, a lot of divorce, a lot of affairs, just stuff that I saw. And God in His grace allowed me to go through 5 to 6 really hard years in kind of a corporate setting, and in seeing again what was presented to me as like the way of the future and money. But then when you're in it, you're like, gosh, I'm miserable. And so now, I feel like God allowed me to see that, because I'm starting to have a realization of what's really important in life. And like you said, as I think about this episode, when I see people, I don't see him as the teller behind the cashier. I don't see him as the retail person. It's like, man, I try to see him as the Lord sees him, and
Mhm.
to just, honor them where they're at. And so I think about this idea of emotional maturity today. I think it's something we can all strive to do. And if you're not perfect, none of us are. I think the whole idea is, whether it's excellence or progress, just how do we get a little bit better? And if this, episode brought you some ideas of resetting, grounding, Zach Morris, timeout, whatever you got to use to be a better you, it's not just be better for the sake of being better, but be better because, You want to, and you desire to, and there's people dependent upon you, and there's a level of excellence that you want to achieve. And my whole thing is, man, leave every situation better than you found it. And if you didn't, if you screwed it up, be the first one to come clean and be honest and reset. And gosh, this is the last story I'll share because it's on my heart. And I'm like, I feel super, super convicted. I got to share it with somebody. I've been coaching baseball for my kids, and I have 4 children. And one of my sons, I just have a different relationship with, from a disciplinary standpoint. Like, I discipline him, and my first oldest child, it's like I say a word and he shivers, so I don't ever have to do anything. But my second son, Jordan, he's a stud athlete, and he's my second child. And there really is a real thing to like birth order. He's fast, he's athletic, he is a spitfire. And we played a baseball game the other day in Little League. He's 8 years old, and we lost to a team we should have beat. And he didn't bat very well. And I just remember this level of disappointment that I had throughout the game, that I wanted to be competitive and see him win. And it had really culminated because that morning, all he wanted to do was play Xbox.
Mm.
And I wanted him to get ready for baseball. And so he played all morning. And then when it was time to go, he wasn't ready. And so now I'm annoyed. And so we go to the game, and he's just mentally not into it. We're on our way home, and I'm thinking about how we lost. And, I was like, we're all done playing video games this weekend. And he came into the kitchen and was like, can I go back and play Xbox? And dude, I let him have it. And I'm texting the other coach, and he's like, how did we lose today? And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, my son's in the car and reminded me, like, Dad, I'm sorry we lost today. And it like made me stop because, I was about to let him have it. I'm like, bro, I'm so glad you didn't. Good for you. Like, that's emotional maturity. Then like 3 minutes later, my son's like, can I play Xbox? And dude, I said stuff that I was like mortified that I said to my 8-year-old son about how bad he played. And I went into my room and just thought, I'll go lay down. Like, I don't want to deal with this. You know what I mean? Because I was more upset with myself, you know?
Right.
And my wife, she's so good. She's like, are you going to go say anything to him? Like, you really should. And I was like, you're right. And I went in and I called him in, and he walked in kind of sheepishly because this grown father just let him know how bad he is at baseball. And he's a stud. He came in, and we just kind of had this sweet moment where he sat on my lap, and we touched foreheads, and I borderline cried. And I was
Mm.
like, bud, I'm sorry. You don't deserve that. And I get emotional because it's easy to screw up. It's easy to let the people you love the most get the worst from you. Could have laid in that bed. But you know what I thought about? If I don't go in this room and apologize, when he's 30, he might remember the
For
day my
sure.
dad told me I wasn't very good at baseball.
Yeah.
So to you listening, if you screw up, it happens. Make it right. Say you're sorry, especially with your kids, especially with your spouse. And, so for you, as I think about this episode, I share that story not to just prolong this episode by 5 more minutes, but to let you know, even though I'm passionately pursuing something which is encouraging you as a listener, I'm still figuring this thing out too. So I'm not perfect. And that's a real story that literally just happened a week ago where I was ashamed. But it's because you who've played baseball, me who's me, we're all figuring this thing out. And don't get sucked into the podcast mentality where everybody's winning, everybody's making money. You just got to 10x everything. We're humans, and we're figuring this out. So emotional maturity, it's your one big thing. We will make sure in the show notes, though, that we have information to get connected with you. Justin, I appreciate you, partner. You are the only other person other than my mom who's called me Steven on a couple of occasions. Steve's fine for the next time we have you on the show. But
Hey, man,
it's always great connecting with another brother who is aware that we're figuring this thing out. So I just appreciate you being a guest on the One Big Thing podcast, and hope you've enjoyed the experience.
dude, it was great. And you set the example of faith in general. As I watch people, I'm not looking again for that perfection, but how do they respond?
Yeah.
And when you respond with forgiveness, man, that's asking for it and desiring it. Like that's just the the best thing you can ask for in all this world.
Yep.
And when you're able to handle those things, it allows us to be a little less frustrated and have a little more peace in our
Mhm.
life.
Yep.
And that's what's so cool. Appreciate you sharing, man.
Yeah. Well, Justin Masterson, thank you for being my guest on the One Big Thing podcast. And if you're a friend or family, check out some of the other episodes. I think they'll inspire you no matter where you are in this season of life. I think there's something you could take away from every single guest. So, as always, thanks for being a listener of the show.